Assalamu Alaikum, my lovelies. I hope you're all very well. Welcome to Crafty Me 2017. I'm really happy that you have joined me today. After popular demand, I have been made a request to show how I do watercoloring on these flowers that I used on a card that I did recently. So jumping straight into what I'm doing, what I have done is I have stamped the floral image on some watercolor card, and I have done it 3 times, so I'm going to show you 3 styles. So I've done it, stamped it on watercolor card with some embossing glue, and I've already powdered over it in 3 colors. The first one you saw there was black, and this one is white, and the next one is going to be gold. And so what I'm doing now is I'm using my heat tool to melt over the powders, and as you can see on each one of them, the first one turned out black, which you couldn't really see under the camera. The white one I think is a bit more visible. If you can see there, it's shining a little bit, so the white one is there. This one is the gold one. I think that one actually turned out the best under camera, in showing how it had all melted. Quick tip on the heat tool is, if you use the heat tool often for long projects like these with lots of embossing to do, the warmer the tool, the faster and the better the embossing melts. So that's just a quick tip. So there I've got my 3 already, and I've got my watercolor set out, the Ganzai Tambi watercolor set. And what I'm doing over here, I think this technique is called wet on wet watercolor technique. I'm not an expert in watercoloring. I'm only doing the watercolorings that I have learned over a period of time, and this is one of the techniques that I really like. It's loose watercoloring, where it's where the water is applied first, and then the pigments of the color is added to it gradually, and you can shift it about, as you can see that I'm doing over here with my paintbrush, and with some extra water as necessary. So that's the flexible thing about the watercolor, is that you can move it about as you wish. The more water you add, the more uncontrollable it can become. So be careful on how you add the water. So a little at a time gives you more control of how you want your colors to flow out. As you can see over here, I'm just adding a little water at a time, and I'm moving my colors gradually. So I wanted on this flower, I wanted it dark on the outer edges, and I'm getting it lighter towards the center of the flower. So as you can see again, I added water with my brush, and I'm adding a dark pigment on the edge, and I'm gradually moving it out with my brush, and I'm the one in control over here. So a quick tip is, I read in a book a very long time ago, is it's never the fault of the tools but the one who is using it. So I have my tools handy, they're not at fault over here, so I'm the one in charge. So it's up to me how I want the flow of my paint to work. And so far so good. I'm actually quite pleased with the way the colors are actually binding together. It's really nice and soft and gentle in the center, and then gradually as you go towards the end, towards the edge, it's very dark pigmented, and I love the contrast of the dark and the light, and particularly these colors. I love my purples and a touch of the red. I don't know the number actually on the Ganzai Tambi, but for those of you who do have a Ganzai Tambi, they're all number coded actually, the colors. So it's one of the dark reds that I've used. And now moving on to the stem, I've just chosen a green that I think that will match most with the floral petal shades that I have chosen. There's so many shades of greens, so I just chose the one I thought that would match the most. I'm quite happy with how this floral watercolor has turned out. So I'm gradually moving down towards the stem. Might have gone off camera a little bit, but there you go. This is one of my favorite stamps. It's by Altenew, and I've used this stamp more than any of my other stamps, I think, and it's just ever so flexible to use. And there's several stamps on this set, but this one just hits it for me, and I love using it regularly because it's just so flexible, so easy, and you can play about with the colors really easily, flexibly, and quite adventurously even. I've done an art journal previously on using this flower, and I was doing rainbow colors all over the petals, and it was just so fun to play with. This one over here, I've gone to the white embossed flower, and I've wanted to add some sunshine element to this one, so I've chosen a bright dashing yellow towards the edge of the petals, and for the center I've gone for a nice orangey red, and towards the end of this watercolor you will see how bright it looks and how warm it looks. It almost feels like the sunshine. So here I am again, water, wet on wet, I think the technique is called, and I'm adding the water delicately with my watercolor brush. I've chosen on purpose a small watercolor brush so that I can be in control of the water amount and the pigments and everything about the watercolor over here, so that I'm in charge of the flow of everything. So as you can see, I've added my yellow, and I'm gently adding the red, the orangey red, towards the center and gradually moving it out. Now if you see carefully, because the water is still wet, when I add the dark color, you can see more of it on the dark color than the yellow actually. How the dark color is flowing out because of the amount of water that is there, and it's flowing out naturally. When something like that happens naturally, it has a better look to it, and a more natural look to it, almost like you know, like the river. No, not the river. Like a bleeding technique, really, I think. I hope I've explained myself well, and I hope you can understand that. And now moving along to the stem, I've added another shade of green to the stem, and I'm just adding a bit more water to the center to just, you know, mold it into place. And there you have it, the yellow one. Now the gold one, again, wet on wet, I'm adding the water, and then I will be adding my pigment. This one I chose to do a single color. That's the nice shade that I've chosen there, a really dark pigmented crimson like color. I love crimson. It's not red and it's not pink, it's kind of in between, and it's a beautiful color, especially on a floral. I just think it's dashing. So here I am, I've added the color, and it's moving gently towards the center, and I've added more pigment, a darker pigment, towards the edge of the petal, and I'm gradually moving it along towards the center, but not so much, with my paintbrush. And you can see how the color bleeds along the wet, the water, through the petal. And the thing about the embossing is, because of the embossing, the colors don't actually mix in. It acts like a barrier. The stamped image with the embossing on all of the three images, they act like a barrier, and it stops the colors from overflowing. So again, when you add a dark pigment and you want the dark pigment, the color, to stay in a particular spot, it stays, it doesn't overflow, because the stamped embossed image behaves like a barrier and stops it from overflowing and bleeding to the other spots. So again, you're in charge, and the embossing powder has helped you to be in a bit more control over your colours. Now you can see over here that it's really nice and delicate in the center, and boom, the dark colour on the outer edge. And finally, I'm on to the stem again. I've chosen another shade of green which I think matches perfectly with the shade of the petals, and I'm moving along all the way down, and yeah, there you have it, almost done. Just doing the final touches and we're done, I think. So there's my gold embossed one, and I'm bringing along over here the sunshine white embossed one, and the first one that I did with the black embossing. Now over here, moving to the next step, is I chose 3 separate embossing folders with different patterns on them, and I embossed them through onto some white cardstock, and I cut them out using a rectangle die. Using a rectangle die. And what I'm doing here, I just simply can't leave something white alone, so I have to bring out my watercolor again. I'm just doing some black splashes. The thinner the brush, the smaller the splashes. The larger the brush, splashes. Moving on, I'll let them dry, and what I've done is over here I've chosen a brown cardstock for the background because I'm creating a card out of them. I've added some double-sided sticky tape to this rectangle white background, and I've added the double-sided sticky tape on the edge, and as you saw, I lifted up the 2 opposite corners to glue them down, and I'll show you how. But before that, I almost forgot the washi tape. I wanted to include a subtle, gentle washi tape as an extra. You don't have to do that one. I preferred to do that because I wanted something else, something felt missing. So as you can see, I'm laying down my white card, the embossed white card, and I can put it down really flexibly and to its perfect place and move the double-sided sticky tape. Now the flower, I had already fussy cut all 3 of them out, and I've put some, what are they called, those stickers, I've forgotten what they're called now suddenly, sticky pads, because I want the flower to pop out, and I've adhered them down, the flower down onto the card, and that's my sentiment there, just a note. It's from the same stamp set. Before I add that on, I've glued down the stem because I'm not putting any sticky pads on there, and I'm just putting my acrylic block there for it to stick down. Now I'm going to add my sentiment and snip off the excess coming out of the card, and there you have it, the card is complete. And I like to add a sticker at the back, Crafty Me 2017 and Handmade with Love, because everything I do it with love. So here's my 3 cards, all complete. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Please leave me a comment below, like, subscribe and share, and let me know what you think. And you can find all my work on Instagram at Crafty Me 2017. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate all the time that you spend with me, and I've left some pictures here for you to look at. Have a great day and look after yourselves and everyone, and I will see you next time, sharing lots of crafty love. Bye for now.